Former President Donald Trump is suing CNN for defamation. The Don alleges defamation and is seeking $475 million in punitive damages.
The 29-page lawsuit also alleges that CNN took part in a, quote, campaign of dissuasion in the form of libel and slander that, quote, escalated in recent months due to the fact that the network fears a Trump 2024 bid.
The lawsuit specifically takes issue with CNN's use of the words racist and insurrectionist, as well as associations made between the former president and Adolf Hitler. CNN has not issued a statement on the lawsuit as of this morning. And he also objects to, I think, the term big lie, which obviously was used repeatedly on CNN until its new, I think its new president, Chris Licht, famously said that he didn't think that terminology should necessarily be used anymore. I was on Reliable Sources with our old friend Brian Stelter when that came down, and we discussed it a little bit. And I think I remember saying that, you know, while the things Trump has said about the election are in fact false, I don't know that it's maybe the biggest lie of all time is probably, or in our recent political tradition, is probably that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction, right, in terms of how consequential and damaging a lie might be. This lawsuit, however, I give very little chances of succeeding in any sense, because the things Trump is describing are just opinion, are not actionable, because trying to dissuade people from voting for Donald Trump is not at all a crime. It's not libelous. It's not any of the things he's talking about. Am I missing something here, Batya?
No, my understanding of defamation is, first of all, like you said, if something is labeled opinion, is clearly an opinion, right? Like that Trump is anything like Hitler. I mean, I think that's a pretty wrong opinion, pretty ignorant and silly opinion, but it's still an opinion. And for libel, you have to be able to prove that something is not only not true, but that the person thought it wasn't true when they said it. And it's pretty clear that people on CNN are pretty convinced that Trump is, racist when they say it. So I think, the lawsuit, I agree with you. I don't know how much merit there is in this. I will say, like everything he says about them, what they have done, that they are trying to dissuade people from voting for him in the form of giving their opinions repeatedly that he is somebody akin to Hitler. That is all true and is really problematic. But the problem is that they believe it. The problem is not that they're sort of libeling him or defaming him. It's that that the people who are in charge of telling the great American story are so wrong in a way that's just so obvious to everybody but them.
Right. Whether it makes for good political commentary or good journalism, totally different matter. I would argue in many cases it doesn't, but like you. But calling someone names, is just so obviously protected under the First Amendment. I think it can be helpful to compare this to some of the other high-profile cases of alleged libel, defamation, etc. Think of Nicholas Sandmann, right, as the kid in the Covington incident on the Lincoln Memorial steps, and his lawsuit alleges factual lawsuits against various media companies. He's alleging something that was factually wrong, that the way they described him getting into the face and not letting the Native American man walk past him, that was a factual claim. It wasn't just describing him as glaring rather than staring. Well, that was opinion. That's a description. Part of it didn't matter. But the fact that he was described as having gotten in the way and physically prevented the Native American protester from getting past him, that was determined to be a factual assertion that was not correct. And then it was. They settled, I think, in all of these cases, so it was never actually weighed upon. But the strength of his case rested on that being a factual determination, not just opinion. Similarly, someone maybe Kyle Rittenhouse can say, well, if they describe, they said he shot, some media outlets or some commentator said he shot black people, or that the people he shot were not armed. All of at least one of them, right, did have some kind of weapon, and they were actually not black people. So those were factual assertions that made it so that perhaps he could have sought some. But now, of course, if those were honest mistakes, that doesn't necessarily then make it liable. For a public person, for a person of some notoriety, which Rittenhouse was by the time he would be in a position to file a lawsuit. Sandman, I think, was actually judged to not be a public person because while this was all happening, he was just a random kid. But for a public person, it's not just somebody says something wrong. That doesn't mean you can sue them. It has to be, like you said, actual malice. There has to be, either they knew it was wrong or it was so negligent, it was so obvious that they should have known it was wrong based on whatever common journalist practice should have been. If you have those elements, then maybe you have a libel suit or defamation suit. You just obviously clearly don't have that here. But I don't know. Yeah.
I was going to say, as somebody who very closely followed the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial, which I'm sure you did not, but I watched almost every minute of it that I could because it was so fascinating. Yes. So many people were saying beforehand, this is such a high bar to clear, but he cleared it. He did win because he was able to show malice. He was able to convince the jury that she had intentionally misrepresented him in this way on factual grounds, like you said. I can't help but feel that the reason former President Trump is doing this now, I don't, obviously I have no basis for saying this except my own understanding of the political winds, but it does to me seem like he's a little bit getting upstaged by Ron DeSantis as enemy number one of CNN, and he wants to sort of put it back in voters' minds like, no, I'm the one who said they're enemy of the people. It's me. I'm their biggest enemy, right?
Yep.
He wants to hear people on Newsmax and on, OAN saying like, oh, look, CNN, they really hate him, right? They called him all these things. Remember, they really hate him, right? Because that has sort of become a real bargaining chip for Republican people seeking office.
I think that's 100% accurate, and he's not been. He definitely wants to be in the spotlight, especially if he does actually intend to try to recapture the GOP nomination for president, something that DeSantis might have something to say about, but we will certainly see. Looking forward to that and more Rising coming up in just a minute.